There are moments when life begins to shift in ways you cannot fully explain. Nothing has visibly changed yet, but deep inside, you sense movement. What once felt familiar now feels unsettled. What once made sense now feels strangely out of place. You try to tell yourself it's just a phase, just stress, just coincidence, but your spirit knows better. According to the Bible, God rarely changes everything all at once without first sending signals to the heart. Before God moves openly, he moves quietly. Before he transforms circumstances, he prepares the soul. This is why the season before change often feels uncomfortable, stretching, even unsettling. God does not shock his people with sudden transformation without first giving them awareness. He is a God of order, intention, and mercy. When he is about to change everything in your life, he leaves signs, not to frighten you but to prepare you. You may find yourself questioning things you once accepted without thought. Your tolerance for certain environments, conversations, or habits begins to fade. What once energized you now drains you. What once felt safe now feels restrictive. This isn't you losing direction, this is God loosening. There is often a strange tension in these moments. You feel pulled forward, yet nothing outward has moved. You feel anticipation mixed with uncertainty. You sense that staying the same is no longer an option, but you don't yet see what's coming. Scripture shows us that this tension is not confusion, it is transition. God is stirring what has been dormant. He is awakening discernment. He is preparing your heart for a shift that will require trust, obedience, and courage. You may feel more sensitive spiritually than usual, more aware of right and wrong, more alert to what disturbs your peace. This heightened awareness is not accidental. When God is about to act, he sharpens discernment so you don't mistake preparation for punishment. He wants you to recognize that what you're feeling is not loss, it's alignment. There may also be a sense of urgency paired with patience. You feel that something is coming, yet you cannot rush it. This is because God's timing is precise. He is not only changing your life, he is changing you. If you are sensing that something is different lately, if your spirit feels stirred, if your peace is being tested, if your desires are shifting, if your faith feels deeper yet more challenged, do not dismiss it. These moments often arrive before God moves in powerful ways. He prepares before he reveals. He warns before he transforms. He aligns before he changes everything. This message is not meant to create fear. It is meant to bring clarity, because when you recognize the signs, you stop resisting the process. You stop questioning God's nearness. You begin to understand that what feels uncertain right now may be the clearest indication that God is already at work, quietly setting the stage for a Number 1, God begins to disrupt what once felt stable. One of the first signs that God is about to change everything in your life is that what once felt stable no longer feels secure. Not because it suddenly became bad, but because it is no longer where you are meant to stay. The routines that once brought comfort now feel restrictive. The patterns that once made life predictable now feel heavy. You begin to sense that remaining where you are will cost you more than moving forward, even though moving forward feels uncertain. This disruption is rarely dramatic at first. It often begins quietly, with an inner unease you cannot shake. You may still be functioning well on the outside, but inside, something feels misaligned. According to the Bible, God often unsettles what is familiar before he introduces what is necessary. Stability can become a hiding place when it replaces dependence on him. When God disrupts stability, he is not being careless. He is being kind. He knows that growth doesn't. This is why you may find yourself suddenly questioning long-held assumptions. You begin to notice cracks in systems you trusted. You feel less willing to tolerate environments that once seemed harmless. These changes are not signs of ingratitude. They are signs of awakening. God is training you to discern alignment, not just security. In Scripture, God often removed false peace before releasing true peace. He disturbed the familiar so his people would follow him into the unknown. What looks like instability is often divine invitation. God is saying, "Do not build your future on what I'm about to move. This stage can feel frightening because it removes predictability. But predictability has never been the foundation of faith. Trust has. God is teaching you to listen more closely, to depend more deeply, and to stop confusing consistency with calling. He is preparing you to walk by faith rather than habit. If life feels unsettled right now. Number 2, old doors close without warning. Another clear sign that God is about to change everything in your life is that doors you once walked through with ease suddenly close, and they close without explanation. Opportunities end, relationships shift. Access you assumed would always be there is quietly removed. You don't always get closure, and that can be one of the hardest parts. According to the Bible, in Scripture, closed doors often function as protection. God shuts what looks good so you don't settle for what is familiar. He removes access so you don't rely on substitutes for His direction. Many people mistake these endings for rejection, but rejection pushes you away. God's redirection pulls you forward. You may feel tempted to reopen what God has closed, revisit conversations, revive opportunities, reattach to relationships out of fear of the unknown. But forcing a door God closed only delays peace. What God removes, He does so with intention. He sees outcomes you cannot yet see, consequences you cannot yet measure. This is also where trust is refined. Can you let go without knowing what comes next? Can you obey without a backup plan? God often closes one chapter before revealing the next, so that faith, not sight, guides your steps. If something in your life ended suddenly and left you confused, do not assume you missed your moment. Often, the closing of a door is the clearest sign that God is changing your direction. He is not taking something from you to harm you. He is making room for what cannot enter your life until the old exits are sealed. Number 3, you feel spiritually pressed, not spiritually lost. When God is about to change everything in your life, there is often an increase in pressure. Not confusion, not chaos, but pressure. It feels like an inner tightening. A spiritual weight that pushes you to grow, to decide, to respond differently than before. This pressure can be uncomfortable, but it is not a sign that you are drifting away from God. It is often a sign that He is drawing you closer. Spiritual pressure is different from spiritual loss. When you are spiritually lost, you feel disconnected, numb, or indifferent. But when you are spiritually pressed, you feel more aware, more sensitive to God's voice, more alert to what disrupts your peace, more conscious of the choices you make. You may feel stretched beyond what used to be enough, as if your faith is being asked to carry more weight than before. In the Bible, pressure often precedes promotion. God applies pressure not to break His people, but to shape. You may notice that this pressure brings clarity. Things you once tolerated now feel wrong. Compromise feels heavier. Distractions lose their appeal. You begin to care more deeply about alignment than approval. This is not spiritual anxiety, it is spiritual refinement. God is sharpening your discernment because what is coming will require it. This season can also feel intense because decisions carry. Number 4, isolation increases while discernment deepens. When God is about to change everything in your life, He often reduces noise before He increases clarity. This is why isolation tends to grow at the same time discernment sharpens. You may find yourself less interested in constant conversation, less drawn to crowded spaces, and more selective about who has access to your time and energy. This is not withdrawal, it is refinement. In Scripture, God repeatedly pulled people away before He used them mightily, not to punish them, but to speak to them without interruption. When voices around you grow quieter, the voice of God becomes clearer, and with that clarity comes discernment. You begin to sense what is genuine and what is merely familiar. You see motives more clearly, both in others and in yourself. This season can feel lonely, especially if you are used to being surrounded by people. You may wonder why connections feel fewer, why conversations feel shallow, or why you no longer resonate with environments you once enjoyed. But God is not removing people to leave you empty. He is creating space so you can hear Him without confusion. Discernment deepens in isolation because distractions fade. You begin to recognize patterns you once ignored. You notice what drains you versus what strengthens you. You become more aware of what aligns with God's purpose and what quietly pulls you away from it. This awareness is essential because where God is taking you will require wisdom, not just passion. Isolation also protects you. Not everyone can walk with you into your next season. Some relationships are assigned to a chapter, not the entire story. God gently distances you so that attachment does not interfere with obedience. He knows that elevation without discernment leads to compromise. If you feel set apart right now, resist the urge to fill the silence with unnecessary noise. Do not rush to replace what God has removed. Let the clarity settle. Let the discernment grow. This quiet season. Number 5. Resistance and opposition intensify. Another unmistakable sign that God is about to change everything in your life is that resistance begins to increase. Not in random ways, but in targeted, persistent ways that seem designed to slow you down, distract you, or drain your strength. Things that once felt manageable suddenly feel harder. Progress meets pushback. Peace is challenged by pressure. According to the Bible, opposition often rises when purpose is close to unfolding. The enemy does not fight what is insignificant. He resists what threatens to move forward. When God is preparing to shift your life, the resistance you experience is often confirmation that something meaningful is about to happen. This opposition may not look dramatic. It can come through discouragement, fatigue, misunderstanding, or doubt. You may find yourself questioning decisions you were once confident about. Old fears resurface. Temptations return that you thought were behind you. The goal of this resistance is rarely destruction. It is delay. If the enemy can keep you exhausted, distracted, or discouraged, he hopes you will stop short of the breakthrough. You may also notice resistance coming from unexpected places. People may misunderstand your intentions. Support may weaken. Plans may face repeated setbacks. These moments test your resolve. They reveal whether your faith is anchored in God's promise or dependent on smooth circumstances. What is important in this season is discernment. Not every battle requires a reaction. Not every challenge needs to be confronted head-on. God often teaches his people to remain steady instead of reactive. Elevation requires emotional maturity. Influence requires restraint. God is training you to stand firm without losing peace. Do not interpret increased resistance as a sign to retreat. Often, it is a sign to remain grounded. Stay anchored in prayer. Stay aligned with truth. Stay faithful in what God has already asked you to do. Resistance cannot cancel what God has planned. It can only reveal how close you are. If opposition feels stronger now than it ever has before, do not lose heart. You are not being pushed back. You are being tested forward. Number 6, your desires begin to change. One of the most personal signs that God is about to change everything in your life is that your desires begin to shift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily and unmistakably. Things you once chased with passion no longer stir the same excitement. Goals that once felt urgent now feel secondary. And desires you never expected begin to rise quietly within you. This change can feel confusing because desire is deeply tied to identity. When what you want changes, it can feel like you are losing a part of yourself. But according to the Bible, God often realigns the heart before he rearranges circumstances. He adjusts your desires so that when the change comes, you are not pulled backward by what no longer fits. You may notice that your appetite for approval decreases. You care less about being seen and more about being aligned. Recognition loses its power. Applause no longer motivates you the way it once did. Instead, there is a growing. At the same time, certain desires become stronger. You may feel drawn to prayer in a deeper way, not out of obligation, but out of hunger. You may desire peace more than progress, truth more than comfort, obedience more than ease. These shifts are not random. God is reshaping your heart so it can sustain what he is about to entrust to you. Changing desires also act as protection. God removes cravings that would compete with his purpose. He gently loosens your attachment to things that would distract you once elevation begins. If your desires remained unchanged, the blessing itself could become a burden. So God works quietly. You may grieve some of these changes. It can be hard to let go of dreams that once defined you. But what God replaces them with is always more fitting, even if it doesn't fully make sense yet. He never removes desire without intending to fulfill something deeper. If your heart feels different lately, if what excites you, satisfies you, or motivates you is changing, do not resist it. This is one of the clearest signs that God is already at work. He is aligning your heart with what is coming. So when everything changes, you are not overwhelmed by the shift, but ready to walk into it with peace and clarity. Number 7. Peace appears before the change does. One of the most overlooked yet powerful signs that God is about to change everything in your life is the arrival of peace before anything around you improves. Circumstances may still look uncertain. Answers may still be missing. The outcome may still be unclear. And yet, something settles inside you. A quiet assurance replaces anxiety. A calm confidence begins to guard your heart. This kind of peace does not come from understanding. It comes from trust. According to the Bible, this peace is not emotional relief. It is spiritual confirmation. God often grants peace not after the change, but before it, as a way of anchoring you while everything else is still in motion. He knows that if you wait for clarity before resting, fear will dominate the process. So he gives peace first. You might notice that situations that once triggered anxiety no longer have the same power over you. You respond more calmly. You react less defensively. You stop chasing reassurance from people and start resting in God's presence. This is not because you stopped caring. It is because you started trusting. This peace is also protective. It guards you from rushing ahead of God. It keeps you from forcing outcomes prematurely. When God is about to change everything, timing becomes crucial. Peace helps you wait without panic and move without fear. It aligns your emotions with God's pace. Do not underestimate this sign. Peace is often heaven's way of saying, I am already at work. It is confirmation. Conclusion. When God is about to change everything in your life, He does not leave you unaware. He prepares you before He moves you. He speaks to your heart before He shifts your circumstances. Every sign you felt, the restlessness, the closed doors, the pressure, the isolation, the resistance, the changing desires, the unexpected peace, has not been random. It has been intentional. God does not disrupt lives carelessly. He transforms them purposefully. What feels confusing now is often clarity in formation. What feels like loss is frequently protection. What feels like delay is often divine timing aligning things you cannot yet see. The process may be uncomfortable, but it is never empty. If you recognize these signs in your life, do not rush to escape the season. Do not doubt God's presence. You are not being pushed away, you are being positioned. God is shaping you so that when the change comes, you are not overwhelmed by it but strengthened for it. Trust what God is doing beneath the surface. Remain faithful in what He has placed in front of you today. Keep your heart open, your spirit sensitive, and your faith steady. The God who begins a work never abandons it halfway. Change in God's hands is not chaos, it is completion. And very soon what you have sensed internally will become visible externally. When everything shifts, you will understand that these signs were not warnings to fear, but invitations to trust. God is faithful, and what He is about to do will be worth the wait.